If you've ever planned a wedding before, you know exactly how the process goes. You have a wish list, you review it, you critique it, you finalize it, but then you review it 100 more times and you finalize it 100 more times. You've got so much going on around you, from what you're wearing that day to where you're getting married, the food that's going to be at the reception, everything in between. Sometimes some things will slip through the cracks and you just don't pay nearly as much attention to them as you should. For instance, the seating chart. Now Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Bob are sitting next to each other. Both of them like to have a few too many. Both of them like to talk politics, and neither of them can agree on anything. Now everybody is out in the parking lot watching an MMA match while they're throwing fists instead of inside celebrating your fabulous day. Well, the same thing goes for fantasy football research. We're taking in so much information throughout the year that sometimes we just tend to overlook some positions or don't dive nearly as deep as we should. And that position can be quarterback from time to time. So I'm going to help you out, and I'm going to try to make things easier for you this year. I've got two must-have quarterbacks for 2020. Welcome back, Headliner Nation. Kyle with the Fantasy Headliners, and on tap, I've got my must-have quarterbacks here in 2020 for you. Now, in my last video that I did, I promised you all a draft guide, and we're going to be giving that away right now. I had a question for you all, got a ton of right answers, so we went through and randomly picked one person that got it right to get a free draft guide. So let's give that away right now. Our draft guide from my last video that I did, Brandon Lawson coming in with the correct answer there of 285 fantasy points scored by Arizona running backs in 2020. Brandon, do me a favor, email us info@thefantasyheadliners.com. Send us that email so we can get you your free draft guide so you can start preparing for your fantasy football championship here in 2020. But don't fret, Headliner Nation, we're going to give away another draft guide. Our must-have videos are some of the biggest videos that we do every single year. So on this video right here, as soon as it gets 1,000 likes, we are going to go ahead and pick somebody who leaves a comment for another draft guide. So before we go any further, do me a favor, hit that like button, and then when we get to the end of the video, make sure you leave a comment down below with the quarterback that you have to have here in 2020. Now, my first pick here at quarterback is going to be a guy that, for me, is a little bit more of a value pick, and that's going to be Matthew Stafford from the Detroit Lions. Now, if you listen to this show religiously, you know that I've been talking about Matthew Stafford for quite some time now. I am all in on Matthew Stafford this year. Now, his 2019 stats, you kind of got to take away there on this side. I'll go this way. You kind of got to take away some of those top player statistics, right? Because he ended up getting hurt. He only played in 8 games, almost 2,500 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 64% completion percentage. But let's take a look at just the weeks that he was healthy and playing. Week 1 through 9, he was the quarterback 6. In the first part of the season, he was a almost top 5 quarterback, but a locked in top 10 quarterback for you. And his 21.45 fantasy points per game, 4th highest on the year. So for the entire year, weeks 1 through 17, even though he only played the first 9 weeks of the season, which was 8 games, he was still the 4th highest in terms of fantasy points per game. And also his fantasy points per drop back of 0.55 tied him for 5th overall in the league. Now, in my must-have wide receiver video, I listed Kenny Golladay, and I called him Big Play Golladay. What about Big Play Stafford? He's the one getting the ball to Golladay. We got to give him that same nickname too, right? Well, Big Play Stafford had 3 or more touchdowns in 5 of the 8 games that he played last year. And also his average depth of target was 11.4 yards. That was highest. That was first in the NFL. Not only that, but his 19.2 deep percentage was first among qualifying quarterbacks. He did end up sneaking in there, 19.2% deep percentage. He was tossing the ball down the field quite often. And not only that, his 8.6 yards per attempt was second in the NFL, and his 310.4 yards per game also second. The dude was slinging it all over the place. A lot of people are kind of overlooking him right now, though, because again, I talk about this all the time, Headliner Nation. Recency bias. People look at things and remember the last thing that they saw. They don't take a look at the entire picture. And with Matthew Stafford, some of that value lies underneath. Like, for instance, his 6.5 touchdown percentage was fourth in the NFL. His 1.7 interception percentage was tied for ninth. And his 9.1 adjusted yards gained per attempt was second. It's not one that you see too often pop up there for you. But then his 13.4 yards gained per pass completion was tied for second. So again, when you take a look at some of these underlying numbers and realize that Stafford on a per pass, per attempt, different things like that, dude was still up there with some of the best in the league. His 106 QB rating was 6th in the NFL. And then one thing too that I liked about last year, the sacks got a little bit better. The one thing about Matthew Stafford is he hasn't had the best offensive line during his tenure with the Detroit Lions. And because of that, he gets knocked around a little bit. He has to rush out of the pocket a little bit more often. I think that offensive line could take a step forward this year, and we saw some of that last year with a 5.8 sack percentage. That was 13th. So not great, but a lot better than what it has been in the past. With Matthew Stafford, he's being overlooked right now because of the back injury, right? He goes down with that back injury mid-season. He's had some issues with it. But I'm going to trust the Detroit Lions here. Leading up to the draft, there was a ton of talk about Matthew Stafford being replaced. They had a top 3 pick. Tua was sitting there on the board. They could take him and make him the replacement for Matt Stafford in years to come. But they didn't do that. Not only did they not do that, but they didn't draft any quarterback in any round. They could have easily, in the second round, decided they were going to go with a quarterback, and they could have gotten a guy that could potentially be a younger backup to Matthew Stafford. They could have moved back into the first round and got a guy to potentially replace Matthew Stafford. But they didn't do that. They decided not to, and I think that is because they know that Matthew Stafford is healthy enough and has some more football left in him. This guy has been a top quarterback option for years and years and years in the NFL, but the problem is he's just had a bad team surrounding him. But he's got an offensive coordinator, just like last year. Darrell Bevell coming over to the Detroit Lions last year. He's going to be here again this year. It's a guy that knows how to utilize him, throw the ball down the field. They also have a new shiny toy at running back and DeAndre Swift that could really help take some of the pressure off Matthew Stafford and open up even more of those plays down deep or even over the middle of the field, because the defenses are going to have to pay more attention to DeAndre Swift than they did Kerryon Johnson. Not only that, but you get another year of Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, and of course TJ Hockenson hopefully back from his injury. All those things combined, Matthew Stafford, you can get in the double-digit rounds right now of your drafts. He is a guy that I would be targeting in every single one because he is going to be a quarterback one for me this year. I will have him in my top 12 quarterbacks. He is a guy that could easily finish there just based on some of those numbers that we saw from last year. Now, here's another guy that we're going to talk about that you're going to have to pay a little bit more of a premium for. And you know me, if you watch this show, I preach late round quarterback. I hate spending early round picks on quarterbacks. However, I get this question all of the time. Kyle, I want to spend an early round pick on a quarterback. Who do I go with? Some of you want to take quarterbacks early. I get it. That's cool. I can't talk you out of it. At least I'll try to help you with it. And for the third straight year, this guy is a quarterback that I have on my must-own list, and it's Dak Prescott. Now, I'm not going to get any hate for it this year. The only reason I might get some hate for it is because everyone out there is going to be like, well, no, duh, Kyle. Of course he's a must-own quarterback. But the last 2 years I've had him as a must-own quarterback, and people have ripped me to shreds. So let me take a little bit of a victory lap here and let you know I've been on Dak Prescott for a while now. I've been telling you all to draft him, and last year he was a great late round quarterback draft pick for you. Now for this year, you're probably going to have to get him a little bit earlier on, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But his numbers last year, great numbers last year. Played in all 16 games, 4,902 passing yards, second in the NFL. His 30 touchdowns were fourth, only threw 11 interceptions, and had a completion percentage of 65%. Now, here's one thing again about Dak Prescott that a lot of people tend to overlook. He was the quarterback 2 in 2019, but he has averaged a quarterback 7 finish since he entered the league in 2016. And the lowest he's ever been is quarterback 11. Dak Prescott, every single year, has been a quarterback 1, and people have never drafted him as such. You'll have to this year. But down in Dallas, they say everything is bigger in Texas, right? Big plays and big D. Dak Prescott was a guy that really stretched the field last year. The development of Michael Gallup really helped with that. And then, of course, a guy like Amari Cooper also helps with that. And then, of course, when you got a running back like Zeke Elliott, people tend to load the box a little bit more. It leaves some of those big plays open for you down the field. His 7 games of 300 or more passing yards was tied for 3rd in the NFL. His 9.8 yards average depth of target was tied for 4th. And his 7 TDs of 40-plus yards was 2nd. And not only that, but the dude also had 3 touchdowns of 50-plus yards, also 2nd. The dude threw the ball down the field with the best of them. But on plays that are called deep attempts, and this is per Pro Football Focus, on those deep attempts, which are targets of 20 or more yards down the field, not plays of 20 or more yards, but targets of 20 or more yards down the field. Dak Prescott last year had 76 deep attempts, tied for 5th. He had 35 deep completions, tied for 3rd. He had 1,157 deep yards, also 3rd. And he had 11 deep touchdowns, tied for 2nd. So when he was targeting his players down the field, 20 or more yards, he was killing it. And now you've added one more weapon in CeeDee Lamb that is going to be another big play threat. Those numbers could get even better. And not only that, I just got to throw this out for you all. The Dallas Cowboys had 45 drop passes last year, the most in the NFL. How much opportunity was left on the table last year for Dak Prescott? Possibly quite a bit. I don't expect them to have that many this year. Michael Gallup did drop quite a few passes. Amari Cooper's been known to drop some passes as well. CeeDee Lamb is pretty sure-handed, though, so I think he helps with that a little bit. But one of the biggest strengths of the Dallas Cowboys, and one of the reasons that I think this is one of the best offenses in the league, is their way that they utilize the play action. Now, with Mike McCarthy, it could end up changing a little bit, but I don't think it's going to end up changing that much. When I did my must-have wide receiver video, I talked about it with Kenny Golladay, but it also had Amari Cooper in it. And I talked about Mike McCarthy and the offense he ran while in Green Bay. This is going to be an offense that's going to sling it, ladies and gentlemen. Zeke Elliott is still going to get his, but this is going to be an offense that tosses it around quite a bit. So do not fear. The change to Mike McCarthy is not going to change some of these numbers that you see here. Dak Prescott's still going to be throwing it around. So on the play action pass, Dak Prescott was pretty darn good. He had 104 completions last year, which was 5th in the league. And he had 9 touchdowns on play action passes, which was tied for 4th. He also had a completion percentage of 69.8%. That was 6th among quarterbacks that had at least 100 play action passing attempts. And then his 1,323 yards on play action passes was 5th in the NFL. So, Dak Prescott, for another year, makes it into my must-have video this year. And the reason that I wanted to bring him up, like I mentioned a minute ago, is because a lot of people still want to spend an early round pick on a quarterback. And of course, those 2 quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Now, to get one of those 2 guys, you're probably going to have to spend a 2nd round pick, maybe a 3rd round pick, depending on your league. For Dak Prescott, you can wait a round or 2 more. Dak Prescott, you might be able to get him in the 4th or the 5th round. Now, Lamar Jackson, there's really no replacement for him. The guy gives you so much on the ground and through the air, it's hard to really replace him. However, if your target is Patrick Mahomes, I get why, but Dak Prescott's kind of that light version of Patrick Mahomes. He's got an offense around him that is comparable to what Patrick Mahomes has, and he has shown, just like Patrick Mahomes, he can go down the field quite often, and he can be very successful doing it. So if you want Patrick Mahomes-like production, but you want it in kind of a discount version, a diet version, then you're going to get that from Dak Prescott. So you can wait a couple of rounds, get your running backs, get a wide receiver, and then take Dak Prescott. If you really want to invest in a quarterback early, Dak Prescott's your guy a couple of rounds later, because that's going to help you through that a little bit. Headliner Nation, there you have it. Those are my 2 must-have quarterbacks here in 2020. Now, don't forget, okay, we're going to be giving away another draft guide. So make sure you comment down below with the quarterback that you absolutely need to be drafting this year, the guy that you want to have on all of your teams, and also hit that like button, because as soon as we get to 1,000 likes, we're going to give away another draft guide. So comment down below, like the video, and of course, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, do me a favor, go down below and hit that subscribe button as we make our way to 100,000 subscribers. Headliner Nation, we appreciate every single one of you. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode here. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one.